Welcome to Top Advisor Marketing, where you will learn how to become a prolific online influencer, attract more ideal clients, and grow your practice. Brought to you by Top Advisor Podcasting, a done-for-you podcasting solution built just for trusted advisors. And now, your co-hosts of Top Advisor Marketing, Kirk Lowe and Matt Halloran.
Hello and welcome to podcast episode number 39. We have a very, very special guest today, Kirk and I. We're talking to Joe Lukacs. Now, Joe is one of those people that once you dive into who this guy is, it's really, really amazing, all of the stuff that he's done. And his statistics are amazing. This gentleman has conducted over 45,000 individual coaching sessions with financial services professionals. 45,000 over the last 25 years. That is absolutely amazing. This guy is a machine, and he's also an author. He just wrote the book Practice Power, 12 Steps to Take Your Business to the Next Level. And he is also a contributor to pretty much every major trade magazine. And he shoots a video every single solitary day. And you can check him out on LinkedIn and also his website. So today we're going to break down Mastering Me, Your Personal Operating System. Joe, welcome to the show and tell us what your personal operating system is.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you, Matt and Kirk, for inviting me to this. Really quick, what your personal operating system is really how you filter your entire world. So being an advisor is really a mirror of how you view yourself. So this process actually breaks it down into a series of patterns that allows an advisor to really get clarity on what's missing in terms of their own operating system.
Fantastic. So let's break this thing down. It looks to me like you have 5 aspects of how you master this. So let's break those down.
Right. So first off, there's what we call our core four. So the first one being your belief system.
Okay.
What you believe about business, about life, about scarcity, about abundance, basically, how you think from that perspective. That's the first one of the core four. The second one is what we call our VR, our values and rules. So in other words, what's important to you? Family, success, achievement, freedom, and then how do you define those, which are your rules? What has to happen to get these things, right? Mm-hmm. So values and rules. The third piece of the core four is what we call our SI, our self-identity. Simply put, the man or woman in the mirror. When you look in the mirror, what do you see? Because if you don't like what you see, that's holding you back from becoming as successful as you want. So that's the third element. Then the fourth one is our ID, or our internal dialogue. Basically, what do you talk to yourself about? What's how do you language things? Our internal communication, right? So when something goes well, do you sit there and say, oh, I'm just lucky, right? Or when something goes bad, see, things always happen to me. How you talk to yourself, your own internal communication has a huge impact on how you view success and failure.
I love this. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I love that you're attacking the psychographic aspects of a lot of this, the behavioral aspects of it. A lot of people, Joe, and I know you believe this, don't understand the power of words, and especially when it comes to how you position yourself in the marketplace. So that self-identity and that internal dialogue and even your values, rules, and beliefs all play a part in how you brand yourself and how you should be putting yourself out there in public. Is that in line with where you are?
Absolutely. I mean, we look, as an advisor, you operate a personality-based business. So in other words, who you are as a human being is reflective in your website, your LinkedIn profile, your Facebook, whatever you've got going on. And, a lot of times we're uncomfortable in being authentic because we're not comfortable in who we are. Mm-hmm. So this is really very important. And it's taken me 25 years to really kind of figure this out and be able to really map it out for clients.
Yeah, I see this all the time, guys, with advisors. In fact, I've had 4 call me this week who just feel really lost with their value proposition. They feel like because they haven't figured out who they are, they can't express who they are, really lost. And some of them have some really good businesses. I spoke to somebody this week who is managing 250 million, and they're feeling lost. I mean, you can have success, but if you really want to be happy and if you want to be focused and you want to have fun, have more time for your family, more time for your clients, you got to figure out what your belief system is. So I think the huge play with just being great in your practice and being great with your marketing too.
Agreed. And I think, one question that I think a lot of advisors struggle with the answer is, Why do you deserve the business? Why do you deserve to be successful? And, as an industry, we talk about elevator pitches and value propositions. And a lot of times those are what I call, they're manufactured. There's some kind of tagline. It's not really who we are as people. And I find that once an advisor can really claim their, being authentic, really kind of know who they are. And if they don't like things, change them. So I think the other element here is because of all, this is all internal, right? Mastering me is you have 100% control of you. You decide. Nobody's born with a belief set, a rule set, a value set, an identity set, and a dialogue set. You're not born a certain way. It's not genetic. This is conditioned over years and decades. The challenge is most people, not just advisors, have no clue, no concept on how they're wired. And what this process does is it allows you to create a map for yourself of how you're wired.
Talk about the map. Kirk and I are huge fans of mapping out our thoughts. In fact, we were talking about the tool that we use, which is MindMeister, and I know you do a lot of whiteboard stuff. So how do you pull that out of your clients through your conversation so that they can start seeing a little bit more clearly who they are?
It's a conversation and also a process on top of a conversation. So what I tend to do, and we just actually did this in Toronto a few weeks ago, the first time I ever actually rolled this out, so this is like brand new, is we actually work through two sets. So I want you to think like an old system, then the system you want to create. So the first thing we do, we take inventory of, hey, how are things current? What's your current beliefs, your current values, your current rules, your current self-identity, your current internal dialogue. I even went as far as in Toronto to actually bring with us like 30 camping mirrors. And I had all the participants stare into a camping mirror for 5 minutes and write down what they saw, good, bad, and ugly. Really be authentic. The key thing here is not lie to yourself. Got to be truthful. And I made the promise that whatever they wrote, they didn't have to show anybody, not a soul, not even me. I wanted them to have the truth. So once you do that, you kind of go through that process. And look, the reality is you're not going to like certain things. The big win for me personally on this was, and I've been doing personal development now for 35 years. I started when I was 17. I learned more about myself in the last 6 weeks than I think I have the last 3 decades.
Wow.
Because I was the guinea pig for this. I was the one that I kept flushing myself through this process over like an 8-week process almost every day. It was like an epiphany for me because once I really kind of hit what I needed, and I'll share, which is cool. So beliefs, values, rules, I'm totally cool with. Where my challenge was my self-identity and my internal dialogue. That's the area. I'm not, because I spend most of my time working on beliefs, working on my values, working on my rules. Self-identity, yeah, I kind of heard about it, but, never really did a deep dive into it. Internal dialogue, yeah, understanding languaging, self-languaging, get that, but really never did a deep dive on that. And as a byproduct of all this, I had to go in there and play full out. And it's made a huge difference. I mean, personally, and the people that I've already taken through this process, they've reported back that, it's really changed not just their outlook on their business and kind of, and their congruency, which is a very big word, but personally, it's really made a difference. There's a level of being authentic now that people have not had before. So inventory first, right? So we do all that. Then there's what I call the pivot. And what the pivot basically is, and this sucks, is I have them write out what this identity has cost them, personally and professionally. And we spend 10 or 15 minutes here, and it is a very painful process if you're being real, if you're not lying to yourself, right? So we do all that. Then what we do, we take 15 minutes, and I literally let them all leave the room. I said, look, you all need to go have a conversation with yourself. And this will be the most important conversation you've probably had in a long time with yourself. And make a decision whether or not you want to do the second part. And so we bring everybody back, and it's like an operating system. Okay, so let's build the optimal operating system for you. Let's build the optimal you. And I said, in order for you to achieve whatever you want in life, economically, personally, whatever it happens to be, what's your beliefs need to be? So what's your belief set? And again, since they're not DNA oriented, you can change your beliefs. So the best you, super you, whatever you want to call it, you 2.0, what are the beliefs? What do you need there? What do you need to believe about business, about success, about scarcity or abundance? And that's a huge one. If you walk around in this industry, oh man, business is hard, look at compliance, deal well, things are hard, the robos are coming to get us, you will never commit 100% to a course of action. And you give yourself permission to be average. So we need to wipe that out, right? But if you believe that, look at all the opportunity. There'll be less advisors 10 years from now than today, because a lot of them are retiring. All the boomers are going to be retiring. Our industry is going to be awash of money and capital. You just got to go out and get yours. 2 different belief sets, 2 different totally action items, right, from moving things forward. So again, what's the ideal belief set? ideal value set, ideal rule set. Who do you need to become? And the key thing here on the identity, this is, I think, this is important. I need to make this to your listeners. Beliefs you can change in an instant. You write it down, you rehearse it, and it becomes who you are. Values we can change in an instant. Rules we can change in an instant. Your internal dialogue you can change. Self-identity is the one that will make or break most people because you cannot change that instantaneously. Here's what I mean. If you're 100 pounds overweight and you look in the mirror, hey, tomorrow you're going to be 99 pounds overweight. That's still there. Like, the reality is it's there. So what you've got to do is picture yourself a certain way, in advance, and almost like kind of start, having that, I hate the word mirage, but sort of like a mirage. What can you do to change? So what I had people do is when they went back to their offices from our meeting, whatever you need to do from a self-identity standpoint, take some steps. Maybe you go get your hair cut differently. Maybe you shave. Maybe you dress differently, right? Whatever you need to do to feel like you're making progress, that's what's most important.
Now, how do you keep people on the track, though, Joe? So this is one of the biggest dilemmas that coaches have, and in fact, marketers and branders have, is making sure that people do something consistently over time. Because you're right, you look in the mirror, you're 100 pounds overweight. Tomorrow you'll be 99 pounds overweight. You're not going to really see any results until you're 30, 45, 60, 90 days into something, because this is hard work. How do you help people stay on track and motivate them and make it so that they stick with it in the long term?
Great question. So remember I said there's that pivot point in the middle of all this? So when we had them write out all this pain and suffering, we actually make that part of their morning ritual. Not that we want to be negative in the morning, but they need to remind themselves, not me reminding them, right? Self-accountability is the best accountability I've always found. If we can get them to remind themselves every day of why they need to do this, why they need to stay the course, right? And they can rehearse that, it becomes part of who they are. I'm not saying they don't slip and go sideways from time to time. All humans do. But they're going to be a lot more consistent in moving things forward. And that's really the key thing. The difference between average and excellent, a lot of times in our industry, is consistency.
Mm-hmm. My old boss said something I thought was fantastic, and I'm sure you are familiar with Ron Carson. He was standing up on stage and he said, "What's the difference between winning and losing the Masters?" And everybody's like, I don't know. He's like, one stroke, right? It's those slight changes over time and consistently putting in the work. And you're not going to hit home runs. Heck, you don't hit home runs all the time with your marketing, right? I mean, we have people who, they don't even hit singles and doubles with some of their stuff, but it's the overall idea of doing it and sticking with it. And I'm really glad that you have your clients, the people who work with you, internalize that and take their own responsibility, because you have to do the same thing with how you're going to position yourself and your business within the marketplace, right? So once you get some of this foundation that you're talking about, which, by the way, if you all of our listeners, if you have not gone through a process like what Joe is talking about, you need to put the brakes on your life and you need to go through this process, because it is not only going to make you a better business person and more profitable, but it's going to make you a better human and be happier with yourself. I'm going to digress just very, very quickly. One of the problems that I've always had with clients is they'll say things to me, and I'm sure, Joe, you've heard this a million times. Matt, I'm going to be happy when I make $1 million. And so, you and I are the kind of people who help them make $1 million. And then they make $1 million and they realize they're still not happy. And the reason why is because they're not happy with themselves. They're not looking at themselves in the mirror and being honest with themselves like you're talking about. And we, Kirk and I, both believe that you have to be honest with yourself about what truly makes you unique and different as a business. And then you have to change, just like the haircut. You have to do small things in order to start rounding these things out to make it so that you can truly believe in your heart of hearts that what you're saying from a marketing and branding position and what you're saying about yourself is true, genuine, and totally in line with your values and beliefs.
Do either of you guys have shares in like a national chain of haircutting places? Because everybody's going out for haircuts tomorrow.
I don't know. I don't do a lot of haircuts, dude. You know that.
So, hey, I do want to touch upon, I want to make sure we get this in on this episode, which is failure. Because one of the key linchpins in all this and in all of life is, how does one define failure to themselves? So, for example, recently I was in Atlanta, Georgia, hosting one of my mastermind roundtables, and I went around the room and I had them all write out, hey, define failure. I want to know how you guys define failure to yourself, because this was something that I had to really work on also. And what a lot of people had was, failure means to me not achieving my goals, right? Failure means to me not getting my outcome. And so if you live life where anytime I don't get an outcome or I don't succeed, I fail, like it's either a pass or fail, you'll never put yourself out there in a big way. You always play it safe because most human beings, when you think about what they don't want to experience in life, is failure. Funny thing about that, though, is how you define it is totally up to you. So if I've got an advisor and they say, hey, failure means I don't achieve my goals, then you're never going to put big goals out there. You're going to always play it safe because you don't want to trigger that failure gene, right? Now, if you redefine it differently, like my view of failure today for me personally is I only fail if I don't achieve an outcome and I don't learn something, right? So if I'm as dumb coming out of it as I was going into it, then yeah, that's a big F for me, right? I always learn. We as human beings always learn from our failures more so than our successes. So in other words, I can't fail anymore because I'll always learn something. Mm-hmm. And I believe that when you adopt a position like that on failure as an advisor, you'll ask for referrals. You'll go talk to the client about the rest of their assets. You'll reach out for their CPA, their attorney. You'll do things and you'll take massive action now because your brain is now wired not to worry about failure. So many guys and gals in our industry are so failure phobic because they have a bad definition, it holds them back from taking action. And boy, when you shift that, and again, we all have the power to do that, it's internal, it's almost like you have a whole new set of possibilities. It's just amazing when you redefine that one little thing.
Wow.
I had this conversation with one of my oldest boy who was going out to play a hockey game last weekend, and they were playing some pretty stiff competition in Toronto. And I looked at him and I said, son, you're one of those kids who doesn't like making mistakes. I said, but today I want you to go make a whole bunch of them on the ice. I want you to try stuff you've never tried. And I don't want you to be afraid to do it. And honestly, he had the best game he's had. And I think that's just part of some of the lessons. I don't think I learned that myself. I probably learned that from one of you two cats, but it was a great advice. And he took it in and did it. And I think I'll try it, say that once a month, just a reminder. It's great advice.
Hey, Joe, when
yes.
you one of the other pieces here, and I know that it's in your system, I'm just kind of waiting for you to tease it out, and I'm going to ask you anyway. What about control? So when you're looking at yourself and when you're looking at your business and you're doing these processes of self-discovery, how do you handle the things that they can control and the things that they can't control?
Right. So now we're talking about the rules of values and rules. So if a person has a set of external rules, for example, I need to be in the top 10% of my company, right? I need to be number one in the branch. I need this. So in other words, you're relying on third parties for validation. You will live a very stressful life because you are ceding control of how you feel about certain things to third parties. So the one thing we want to look at when we look at rules is, do we have control over the rules? Do we have control over the outcomes? Because if you don't, you realize that you're setting yourself up for stress because you cannot control that outcome. So that's one of the validations we do when I take somebody through this process is, do we have rules that we control or are they external? And a lot of guys and gals in this industry, because the way the industry teaches us, right? Chairman's club and this, that, is a lot of times we're very external oriented, which just creates a huge amount of issues, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. So when we do the rewiring of it and make them all internal, now you feel like you have control. Like it doesn't matter what other people think. You're not going to be liked by, like there are people around that want to be liked by everybody. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't, hey, look, it doesn't happen. Yeah. Right. And yet, so we don't put ourselves out there because we're worried about that rejection, right? Where it shouldn't matter.
Let's turn it on its head here because you were just talking about failure and some of the negative aspects of it. One of the pieces that Kirk and I have both found is when they get a win, that doesn't change them or doesn't reinforce them. Have you experienced that people don't allow themselves to enjoy the win? Because that's really part of this internal dialogue.
You're absolutely right. I mean, a lot of people, if you really talk to them about when they get a win, whether it's a new client or they just get a positive outcome, that four-letter word luck comes into play. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm just lucky, or I was lucky with that one. And it's almost like, you'll own the failure, but you won't own the success.
Right.
And I think we misconstrue that from being humble. You can celebrate internally. You don't have to go throw a party for everybody. You can just celebrate yourself a little bit, right? Give yourself a pat on the back, that a boy, nothing wrong with that. But you got to own it. And I think that's where we run into challenges. And I'm going to digress for 30 seconds here. The biggest challenge I see going forward is how a lot of people raise their children, the helicopter parents, for lack of a better term, is they really try to keep their children from failing. Like, let's make sure they don't fail. And what's going to happen as they get later on in life, they've got this very sensitive rule set around failure. So when the real world hits them, it's not going to be pretty.
Joe, what do you mean by celebrating a success? And I know you said just, internally just say attaboy, but whenever whenever there's a good thing going on in my business, I always feel good about it. But I don't know that I really understand what celebrate means.
I think celebrate means different things to different people. So, for example, earlier this week, I was talking to a client and we got a huge referral, and they said, yeah, that person just it was just a random thing. And I go, no. How many referral conversations have you had this year? I bet you've had 300 to 500 conversations. You've been reminding your clients that you're open for business. You've been talking about it in your reviews. You've got it as a little tagline under your email. So this is not luck. Just because you position the energy one way and got a result from a totally different direction, you own this, and this is a good thing. So it's also something just giving it a different distinction in a person's mind is very helpful.
I think it's really important to have reminders of your success around. I think everybody should have an I love me wall that isn't public, but it's private. So you can walk into a specific place and look at a wall and see visual representations to reinforce those behaviors. You just have them there, whether they're your CFP, whether it's when you graduated from college, whether it's advanced education, whether it's an awesome trip that you took with your family. That's really what a logo and a brand is supposed to do, is it's supposed to reinforce a very specific type of behavior. It's supposed to reinforce who you are and what you mean. And that I love me wall is great. And this is why I like when people put their logos and stuff all over the place in the office and their mission statements or things like that. So they have the opportunity to have that reinforcement. You can't always look outside for that reinforcement. And I think that's what Joe's saying, which is such a brilliant thing. A lot of times you can reinforce and make yourself feel special without having to look like for being in the top 10 of your broker dealer, hitting a specific GDC milestone or an AUM milestone. You know, a lot of times it's when you go out on a family vacation and you take a picture with everybody in your family smiling and you put that on your desk, and every day that you walk in, you remember that, you know, you worked really hard for that vacation. Everybody had a great time.
That's perfect. I couldn't have said it better myself. And you're right. I mean, look, I think a lot of times we're so busy trying to succeed that we don't pause. And to your comment, it's different for different people. I'm a big fan, although I love the wall idea. That's really cool. I got to remember that for my own use. I think it's about, hey, if you've had a great week, take Friday afternoon off, go play golf, go be with the family, take the spouse out to dinner, or just have a me day, right? Whatever a me day is for you, playing golf, hitting the spa, going to a ball game, whatever it is, you know, celebrate the wins, you know, because we definitely pine on the losses. And I think a lot of advisors / a lot of people, you know, we're on to the next thing. And we need to, you know, life's too short. We got to celebrate now, today, not when you're 60, 65, if you get that far.
So, Joe, we've been talking today about your personal operating system. We need to be wrapping up our podcast today. What sort of closing thoughts do you have for our audience? And how can people reach out to you to find more about what you offer to our listeners?
Great. So I think the two places are really cool is, first off, YouTube, Coach Joe Lukacs, Lukacs. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I love putting videos out every day. I think that's a really cool place to take a look. Hook up with me on LinkedIn and just Google me. You'll find me. I'm not that difficult to find online, which is really cool. And then the last thing I'd like to say is all of us need to take 5 to 10% of our income and make it your own personal development budget and go invest in yourself. Invest in yourself to become the best you possible.
Wow. Thank you, Joe. This has been an absolutely fantastic and enlightening episode. I can't wait to have you back. Actually, we need to have you back when you keep doing these mastermind things all over the place. We'd love to have you back in a little while, and you give us some updates on what's going on and how these things are going. Is that cool?
That's cool. I thank you. Hey, Matt, Kirk, thank you very much. I loved our time today.
All right. This was podcast episode number 39 with Joe Lukacs, Mastering Me, Your Personal Operating System. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon.